Hey guys, today we're talking about one of the best Hufflepuffs of all time. Love this man. There's not a lot of Hufflepuffs to choose from, but like, whatever. He's still like greatest of all time, you know what I mean? And that is Ted Tonks. Okay, so Ted Tonks, his full name's Edward, but we're not gonna go there. We're sticking with Ted. He is a Muggle-born Hufflepuff, and he eventually marries Andromeda Tonks, who is part of the noble House of Black clan. She's sisters with Narcissa and Bellatrix. But anyway, this is the man she leaves them all behind for. So, you know, he's gotta be great. And he was born in like the 1950s, so he went to Hogwarts in the 1960s with the Black sisters, about a decade or so before the Marauders. And then he died in 98, so he was about like 42 years old. And this is so devastating. I don't want to start with his death, so we'll get back to that. But basically, Ted and Andromeda had one daughter. Her name's Nymphadora. She's probably like the most well known from the books. She's the one with like the pink hair, and she's a metamorphagus, so she can change her face and her appearance at will. It's different than an animagus, because animagus you have to like train and like do spells and stuff like that to like become an animal, but like metamorphagus, they're just like born that way. And so usually metamorphaguses, they are like only come from people who have super powerful parents, so like very powerful witches and wizards. So that just means that Ted was super powerful, which we love that. And it usually means that they were powerful in transfiguration. So a lot of people think that Andromeda was super good at transfiguration, and so Ted could be, he could not be, whatever, anyway. But yeah. So what we know is that Ted and Andromeda, his wife, they did not join the Order of the Phoenix, but Nymphadora did. And so even though they didn't join, they still supported them and they still were allies, because they were actually the safe house that Harry and Hagrid went to when they did like the Seven Potters, the Seven Harrys situation. They were the safe house that they went to. And basically when Harry shows up, he's had it rough, okay? They just had a rough fight. And so Ted actually heals Harry's like tooth, his arm, his ribs. So we know that he's a good healer. And we also know that healing isn't really taught at Hogwarts, because in like the 7th book we know that like Hermione knows how to heal a little bit, but Harry's like having this realization that they're getting hurt all the time, and he's like, I literally don't know how to heal at all. This seems like a huge lack of like education. But we do know that Ted was good at it, so either he had some outside training or he was training on the side with Pomfrey, we don't know. And we also know from that scene, basically everything we know about Ted Tonks we get from the scene. But we also know from that scene that he knew Arthur, they were kind of friends, or like at least acquaintances, because he knew that Arthur was like obsessed with muggles, and they probably went to Hogwarts at the same time. They probably were in school together. It's also alluded to that he disapproved of Nymphadora marrying Remus, which is so sad. How could you disapprove of Remus? But like, the man is a werewolf, and so as a dad, I'm sure he was like, We also know that he was tortured by the Ministry along with Andromeda, and it says in the books that they were like shaken but okay, so they didn't lose their sanity or anything like that, which once again shows like how powerful they are. But yeah, it's rough out there. And we also know that Ted and Andromeda let Nymphadora stay with them when she was pregnant, because at that point Remus is like crashing out because he's like, oh my gosh, the baby's gonna be a werewolf, or like whatever. And so she comes to stay with them, and even though he didn't approve of like Remus or whatever, obviously he welcomes his daughter back with like open arms. And then leading up to his death, we know that the Ministry required people to register as Muggleborns, and Ted refused to do this just like on principle, which love that for you. But because of that, he had to go on the run, and so he was actually on the run with like Dean Thomas, which is so random, and like this other random guy. But anyway, they're on the run, and they were eventually caught by snatchers, and he was killed resisting arrest. So he was, like I said, about 42. This happens like post Seven Harrys, pre-Battle of Hogwarts. So it's like basically while she's pregnant, and so that is why Nymphadora names her son Teddy after her dad Ted. And actually the person who murdered him when he was resisting arrest was Fenrir Greyback, which is so sad. Like the whole werewolf thing, full circle situation. And another side note, I forgot to say this earlier, but we know that he reads the Quibbler, so we love like a Xenophilius Ted Arthur moment, question mark, I can see it. Now, moving on to headcanons, a lot of these headcanons come from the chapter about the Seven Harrys or the Seven Potters, I forget what it's called. But basically that's like all the information we have about him, so people just like take that and run with it. Like everything, even though he's not really in the Marauders fandom, I was gonna say like everything in the Marauders fandom, he's like pre-Marauders, but honestly I love that era too. So basically the Ted Tonks headcanons are not as like set in stone as the Marauders ones, but I'm just gonna take every headcanon that I've ever read as fact, okay? So just go with it. Basically, people think that Ted was probably a healer because we know that he's good at healing Harry and he's good at like fixing him up. So people, like I said, just took that and ran with it. But I can totally see it. And like in my mind, I think that like Ted, as growing up as a muggle, wanted to like become a doctor, that sort of thing. And then when he went to Hogwarts, he still wanted to be a doctor, but like the type of doctor kind of changed to be like a healer and healing with magic. People also think that he's friends with Arthur Weasley because, like I said, they went to Hogwarts at the same time, even though they were in separate houses. Obviously, Ted was a Hufflepuff and Arthur was a Gryffindor. It's plausible that that they would have like had classes together, that they would have been friends and gotten along. And in the Seven Harrys, we know that he knows about like Arthur's Muggle obsession, and so as a Muggleborn, I'm sure he just like feeded his delusions and stuff like that. So I love that. Another headcanon is that Ted is the oldest of 4 brothers, which I love that. I love like an oldest brother moment, and that his parents weren't super wealthy growing up. They were kind of just like blue collar workers living hand to mouth, and obviously they had like a lot of sons to support, and so part of the reason that Ted wanted to become a healer was to financially support his family and take care of them, but also just to like help people in general. And some people think that like Ted felt like helping people was the only thing he was good at, and so anyway, that's like the route he wanted to go, and he's just a sweetheart. I love this man. I can totally see this headcanon. And there's honestly no proof of this at all in the books, but like I said, it's just all speculation. But another thing is that his 3 younger brothers, because he's the oldest of 4, called him Bear as his nickname, which I think is so cute. Basically, as far as personality goes, people think he was like easygoing, charming, obviously gorgeous, obviously, and just just overall like a good boy, you know, like he's one of the good ones. And so since healing isn't taught at Hogwarts, people think that he was like privately tutored by Pomfrey, and there's even some fics where it's like he's privately tutored by Pomfrey and Andromeda's privately tutored by McGonagall, and I just love that for them. I feel like that's so iconic. It's giving like power couple. Another headcanon is that him and Narcissa would beef when they were at Hogwarts together because Narcissa would be like super protective of Andromeda, and she obviously like did not approve of Ted at all. And so they would just be like super passive aggressive towards each other, which like it's giving sibling vibes. I love it. And another headcanon that I can totally see is after Andromeda was burned off the family tree and disowned by the Blacks, Ted's family like just completely took her in as their own. Like the Muggles just completely took her in and adored her and loved her like a daughter. And people think that like because Ted had like 3 brothers or whatever, it was like the first time his mom felt like she actually had a daughter, and so she completely like fawned over Andromeda, which I love it. It's so sweet. And that is basically all we've got on Ted Tonks. I love this character. I think he's so fun, and just like it's giving like, I don't know, like not James Potter, not Cedric, but like kind of a combo of the two. I don't know, he just seems like a sweetheart, you know? So let me know what you think about Ted in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.